Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life, and today we have Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson. Hey, Brian. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Rico.
For sure. Before we get into the show, we're going to be talking just to whet your taste buds a little bit, everyone. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Ingle Shopping Center, the Roberts property behind Chase Bank, what's going on there, as well as the progress on City Marshals. But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you to two of our lead sponsors. One is EV Remodeling Inc. They're a local company owned by Eli. And Eli has done a great job with home remodeling, anything from $10,000 to $100,000 in work, from your backyards to whole house build outs. So check them out. They're at evremodelinginc.com. Does great work there. Second one, the second lead sponsor is Clearwave Fiber, who's come on board. They do a lot of the business internet work here in the city of Peachtree Corners. They have over 1,000 plus customers, both business and, I believe, residential. And you can check them out by going through our links. Go to our website. You'll see their ad there and click right through to them. And that's Clearwave Fiber. So thank you to those guys for supporting us and what we do here. Now, let's get on to what doing this every month. Um, and I guess, part of what we're going to talk about with Ingalls is that since we've talked a little bit about this on another podcast, and we have an article out that came out this morning as we're taping this. And we talked a little bit about the Ingle Shopping Center possible redevelopment. And it's really coming from the owners of the property. So tell us a little bit exactly how this is being talked about, because I know this has come up several times over the past few years.
Well, economic development projects or the pursuit of, economic activity are always hard to talk about because they're moving targets. There's lots of considerations going on. You've got land acquisition and negotiations and,
Right.
different developers or owners kicking tires, seeing what. So, it's always difficult because at any point in time, short of having an inked deal, these things can fall apart or anew.
For
So I only
sure.
say that to say that, it happens. And sometimes, all it takes is a word or phrase and, done not quite as accurate. And all of a sudden the community thinks that it's going one direction. And you're like, hold
Hmm.
on, so this is no different in that the work that's being done, the development that's happened at the town center, the redevelopment of the forum under North
Hmm.
American Properties ownership has gotten a lot of people excited about possibilities of growth and capitalizing on the increased activity that those two sites are generating. And a lot of the property owners that have current existing, commercial property adjacent to or near the town center and forum have approached us recently to discuss possibilities. Hey,
Okay.
how might we, or change or redevelop our property in a way that's, beneficial to the town center, and we could benefit from the town center and forum's activity. And so the Ingle Shopping Center,
Hmm.
parcel development and the owners of it are no
Right.
different. And so they have discussed with us possibilities. And when this happens, sometimes the city, given that we have in-house capabilities of doing this, we know the zoning better than anybody else. We know, setback, density requirements, all
Right.
that stuff. We can sometimes come up with, renderings and conceptual site plan possibilities that it's easier for us to do than a consultant working for the property owner. And so, in the case of Ingles, in our discussions with the owner, of possibilities. We in-house generated just a few ideas, not ones that were generated at the request of the tenant of
Mm-hmm.
that development or the owner, but the owner was very open to, yeah, if you could show us how it might lay out differently,
Mm-hmm.
we could consider it. And obviously, since Ingles is the anchor tenant there, we all know it is that. And that's a
Right.
significant, corporate tenant of the area. And so they,
And
they come
so,
up a lot.
and so just to, so then people know, because they may not know, CVS is an out parcel, not part of that property, if
Correct.
you will. So is the Dunkin' Baskin Robbins store. That's separate, also, I believe, right?
No, that one's part of
Is
it.
that so? That is
That's
so. The CVS is an out parcel. The
part.
old
CVS is an our parcel, correct?
okay, and the old McDonald's, is that also separate?
Well, it is separate in our renderings. We just made an assumption based on, the owner,
Hmm.
saying they have a relationship with McDonald's corporate office because it's owned by McDonald's corporate. It's not owned by a franchisee.
Oh, okay.
So, again, but that's why in
Yeah.
economic development, for you to master plan something, sometimes you have to make assumptions of certain things. And so
Right.
the assumption was that would be, if this happened, would be acquired and would be added to the block of property that's just
Okay.
there. And
Okay.
so, some of the renderings did have a newer, somewhat smaller footprint for Ingles. It
Hmm.
would be like, hey, Ingles, there would be a smaller footprint built closer to 141 for Ingles to move from their current footprint into a smaller version, in which there are some locations that Ingles has a smaller footprint, but
Hmm.
has not been discussed with them. They haven't requested, they are not the one requesting any kind of a
Right.
footprint change. But you
Okay.
just never know. It's not uncommon. We've done this with some of the other ones as well.
Hmm.
But this is what happens, and this is oftentimes how, to a degree, how North American properties redevelopment activities at the forum happened is we generated the city with the previous owner before North American got it. We generated some suggestions in the
Hmm.
forms of site plan renderings that got the wheels turning. Ultimately, it was one where the previous owner said, that's great, we're going to sell it. But when
Right.
we sell it, we're going to share the fact that the city is open to some change based on the
Right.
rendering shared. So, these are all very fluid situations,
Well,
which unfortunately, oftentimes more than not, they
hmm.
don't materialize. But miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
always open to to try. And so that's kind of where we are with that, which is nothing may ever happen, or there could be
Right.
a
Now that
significant upgrade.
and the owner is not a REIT. The owner is a local business group
No,
or
the owner
person,
is a Canadian company. It's a
a
Canadian
Canadian.
company.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, and I, it's, we did talk about it on a podcast and in an article about it possibly coming from Ingalls, but this was really from the owners of the development
Yeah.
of the property over there. Now it's the same. The, I mean, I think it was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. They also talked about maybe putting gas pumps at one point,
Yep.
similar to what Kroger's has over there. Um, so interesting, but even if anything were to happen, um, I mean, obviously, before even ground would break, could probably take 2 years, I bet, because of rezoning and stuff like that. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, probably. I mean,
yeah.
maybe not. Well, I mean, for them to go vertical with buildings, I mean, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, right now there literally is nothing, so it would have to start from scratch. You'd end up having to do site plan, come up with
Right,
use, because rezoning,
right,
and then that's when you get the design professionals of architects and engineers that
right,
are going to need many months, probably a year, to actually generate the construction documents. Then you got to
right.
go to construction, and even if you move the Ingles, to a building that's more forward facing on 141, you would have to construct the new building, and then after they move into the new space, then go back and demolish the existing space to put the new use there, which is why the Forum is fully redeveloped is probably a 5-year process, because you've got new build, and then you've got some demolition, and then you've got you're fitting pieces into existing properties. Redevelopment is always a lot more challenging and time consuming than new build. So
well, and you have that whole big right behind Ingles. You have that whole big not empty, but you have the warehouse part behind Ingles that takes the trucks in that can turn around and stuff. That's a whole big driveway, if you will. Back there, I don't know, if anyone's really driven back there. It's huge back there. So even to move that building forward, even on a smaller footprint, you still have to accommodate trucks coming in and stuff. And I don't even know where that where the setback is, that valley part near the parkway. I don't know if that's
you're talking about the big ditch along 141.
Yeah. I mean, that probably would have to. I bet you that could get filled in or something. I mean, I bet you that's part of that discussion, I would think.
Well, it is. We've actually looked at that before because it's horrible. But it is not easy. If it was easy, we would have done it. It is over $1 million just to fill it in because of the utility work that would need to be done. You've got power lines, power poles in it. You've got drainage both under it and it being used as a detention facility, a holding facility for extra water when it rains hard. So we've looked at it, but yes, a redevelopment of the whole thing might include that, just to get more real estate, developable real estate. So big thing. May or may not happen, but right now this is pretty common when there's an interested owner who's like, look, I'm in this to make money like, everybody is on these things. And I'm willing to, consider, what redevelopment changes I might be able to do to ultimately maybe be a better, value add to the town center forum, and then they can derive more. Maybe they have a use that makes people want to walk over to that location, whereas right now it's more of a drive-to destination. So,
I mean, interesting, because I mean, even some of the renderings that the city drew up, and even their rendering that we've put out on our website that we've seen that was out there. I mean, there's multiple. It would be a multi-use, so there's could be multiple stakeholders in it. Because I think one of the things was an active living, maybe seven-story tower, 6-story, whatever would be the center of it, and then retail around it, possibly offices. So we might be 2 or 3 floors in addition to that. So more use out of that property going vertical, like you've mentioned before. So yeah, for sure.
Vertical, definitely closer to 141.
Right, because there's all that space. So going from something like that, which is, speculation, possible redevelopment, going to something
very
else
time consuming.
Yes. Not just that, but, just everything that goes into it, public hearings, I guess, and all that stuff, right? So let's go to somewhere that is pretty much set already to a degree, because it was part of the North American property deal with the Forum and Town Center. So the property that's commonly known to some people as Roberts property, Charlie Roberts, that owns the land that's behind Chase Bank and H&W Steakhouse. That property was rezoned, I think, absorbed into the multi-use plan that's there, right?
Yep.
And then allowed to be apartments. I forget how many units, 260 plus maybe.
Yep,
somewhere
about
around
that. Yep.
Yeah. So that was approved. That was all okay. The deal didn't work through for some reason, whatever that reason is, with North American properties and Charlie Roberts
interest
properties.
interest rates and borrowing money. But yes,
Right.
the deal, that side of the road was an out parcel to North American's Forum Redevelopment.
Right.
And so they changed, and or that deal fell through, and so yeah.
And so now there's a new buyer, and I heard that it was going to close, and you just confirmed before we got on that it closed. Who's
Yep.
the new buyer? Tell us a little bit, because
It's
there will be apartments there. I mean, that's what it's zoned for, so it's not like it's a question anymore.
That's
So,
correct, and they're going to be building what is materially the same thing, that was the same renderings that were presented to council.
oh, okay.
There's some, subtle tweaks to the exterior, but generally that product, and it's a residential developer named Terwilliger Pappas.
Hmm.
And so that's who closed on the property, and so they are going to construct that those units as presented to council during the entire North American property application.
Now, most people don't know that business, but they own, is it Solis, Solis,
Yes,
prop,
correct. SOLAS.
and that's what type of apartment? Is it Solis Apartments? I guess. Trying to find it now. I know there's one at Sugar Hill that's an active apartment community. It says that's
They've
Sugar
got
Hill.
property on Swanee Town Center.
Swanee Town Center, right?
They've got property up in Johns Creek that they've developed. So, this is what they do.
Hmm.
They're a quality developer. We were pleased on who it was sold to.
Yeah, I've seen
So,
some of the Solis properties. Are very nice properties. Very
yes,
sort of luxury driven a bit.
yes,
Um,
it's a higher end. It's a
yeah,
higher end building, and this is structured parking, as you know.
right.
Pedestal parking where your parking deck is underneath the units. So again, we were pleased at who it was sold to, and they've
Hmm.
met with us, and their intent is to start site work late this year.
Oh, really? Okay. So they're gonna start doing work, and so I mean, the property that's by north of the wine store, corner wine and spirit, that's a different property, but um, they've been out of the ground. They're already selling at this point. I think it's been about what, a year maybe that's been
Probably
building.
Broadstone.
Yeah, yeah, Broadstone at Peachtree Corners. Um, so they have a beautiful website, and they've been already doing pre-sales on it. And to some degree, it has almost the same look, I think, as Solis Properties does to a degree. But I remember the renderings, I guess, that were put out for that. So I'm gonna probably put that in the show notes for those that are listening, because I think there were some renderings on there.
You can, Rico. I mean, you can pull the application for North American property, the rezoning
Yeah,
application, and the renderings for that side of the road
yeah,
are going to be in generally. I mean, again, the Terwilliger, I do know that they're lightening up the colors.
mm, okay,
It was a little bit dark, and I think that there again might be very subtle tweaks, but there are no
right,
material changes. So I think that would be fair to put that out,
okay,
because it has to be in material compliance or general compliance with that
right.
rendering.
And also with the conditions on it, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly, there was individually wired units. There was a bunch of things in there like that. Um,
that's correct. EV charging stations. They also have
EV,
to put
right.
a connection across the creek.
That's right. Okay.
You could
Yes.
walk directly across the creek from the property and not have to go out to the sidewalk on
That's
141 and
right.
walk up.
That's
So
right.
that's another one. So yep.
So that could be out of the ground really in a year and a half to 2 years, like
Yeah, I
sounds
mean,
like to me.
look, they're starting the architectural actual construction document design of the building, because they
Hmm.
don't need to go back to the conceptual stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 9 to 12 months they're going vertical, which is pretty
Okay.
quick from not having gone through rezoning or whatever. So, I mean,
Right.
site work in November or December is, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Fast.
pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, people should be aware of that. 260 plus units and doesn't need any rezoning or anything. But the property, this company is a good company from the properties that people can see around, like in Sewanee or Sugar Hill, in these places. Will that have retail also? I forget now if that had any retail space on there.
Not on that side, no.
All right, so strictly apartments. Um, cool. The Now I pass by the forum every once in a while. I'll go through there at least once a week and stuff. They're already vertical with two-story metal framework for the what we call the jewel boxes that they're going to have there. And they've already announced that they're going to have a food hall by Politan Row, I believe, which should be great. I've seen some of the stuff they've had at Colony Square. It's all good chef-driven brewery, also centered around a brewery area within that. So they're moving along, but we don't see anything else coming there besides that north end piece right now, through until next year, I guess. Have they suggested to you that they're going to break ground on anything else? The beginning
Yeah,
of
the parking
24?
deck,
Oh,
the parking.
right, sure. But other than
So
that,
the next thing would be sometime late summer. Well, we're kind of late summer, or fall sometime. They're going to probably break ground on the parking deck, which is that,
behind
parcel,
Belks.
but behind Belk.
Right.
And that will be the next project because they can't remove any more of the middle parking
Mm-hmm.
stalls until the new parking deck is built, because then they would be below the parking threshold that they need
Right.
to, properly service the property. So
Right.
the next thing would be the parking deck, which would run into, say, summer of next year. And at that
Mm-hmm.
point, then they could transition back into removing the middle parking stalls and continuing down towards the small event area that they'll build right in front of Belk.
Okay. All right. Cool. Sounds like they're on track to do everything that they said they would be doing. All right. So why don't we also dig- segue a little bit into, well, it's not segue really, but the city marshal system is moving along. We've talked about it several times over several podcasts, and of course we want to set expectations because you just don't stand up a city marshal without regulations, without equipment, without office space, without officers, without a chief of police, if you will. So there's a lot still going on. Um, I had thought, even myself, I had thought maybe the end of July that we would see, marshals on the street, but that's not really the case. Things take time. So tell us a little bit where the city's at right now with this.
And I appreciate you bringing that up because, for those who may have seen, read, watch city council meeting, we have to go through a series of steps within what state law requires for, as a city, for us to stand up, a public safety, component unit of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to adopt an ordinance and creating the department. It's created, and we have two of the three, positions that we have funded this year have been filled. But for those who have seen that, like you said, to manage expectations, I don't want there to be anybody who thinks or is expecting to see them out really just, all over the community doing all, sorts of things right away. It's important to remember two things. One, City Marshal Department is a supplement to Gwinnett County Police Department. It is not to replace. I mean, we as residents of Peachtree Corners are paying for Gwinnett County Police because Gwinnett County is allowed to charge the police millage rate
Mm-hmm.
inside our city limits to fund the police department or the police officers out of West Precinct that provide police coverage. We are not changing that, and we have every intention at the city to continue to expect to get services because we're paying for them. But as you and I have talked about, Rico, there's gaps, and that's where the marshals are now. So that's one thing, is to remind everybody that. The other one is, we have to stand up and go through all the policy, intergovernmental processes that any brand new law enforcement agency would have to go through, because these marshals are post-certified sworn marshals, which means, an example would be they have the authority to take away somebody's civil liberties if you commit a crime and they, detain you. Well, to do that, you've got to have a policy on use of force. What's the escalation of, force, and when can you use it and when can you not?
Right.
That's just one example of many, many policies that have to be adopted. Body cam. Are we going to require it, or what's the policy on when it's turned on and off? How long are we going to store the data? Things like that. Are they going to have a role in, or what's their role in interacting with the community? Are they going to be our primary points of contact with HOAs? Things like that.
Sure.
We've got to get them fitted for uniforms, order the equipment, the vehicles, get the vehicles wrapped. I could go on and on. And so,
there's a list of things. Even access to, there's all the cameras we have around the city, to give them access to that. How is that access going to work?
Trained on it. And, so it is a process, but even at the end of the process, I can't beat that dead horse enough. This is to supplement. This is to be a force multiplier to Gwinnett PD. Gwinnett PD is still our primary police department. The marshals are not going to be responding to 911 calls. Right. That's still Gwinnett PD. Those kind of things, but we've got lots of, we've got intergovernmental agreements that we're going to have to enter into with, or amend existing ones with like Gwinnett PD or the sheriff's office and things like that. So, we're getting there. We're getting there to where these assets can really be, vectored to areas that may, spring up and could use a little bit of extra assistance to Gwinnett PD, but we're not there yet. And so we've got to do this very carefully, because this kind of stuff is, you can get into trouble if you don't do it right. So expectation management, as you said.
Right. So setting those expectations, when do you think, do you have any estimate of when the first cars may be out on the street? Will it be the end of the year?
I would say by the end of the calendar year, you're going to start seeing the cars out, and a little bit more, 6 months from now is probably a good time. We'll have the chief marshal's position filled by then. That job announcement's going to go out probably tomorrow.
Okay.
And so, I think by the end of this calendar year is fair. There may be a few areas that, they're not quite involved in for another, period of time into next year. Because mind you, as a supplement, they're going to be in areas that Gwinnett PD isn't really very active in. For instance, use of drones in problem areas. Gwinnett PD has too many constraints, that not the resources to be able to do it. Ours will.
Interesting.
So our marshals will be using drones as a supplement when there are situations where it makes sense. And in addition to that, is as a location for there to be some innovative use of drones in the public safety space because of our partnerships with at Curiosity Lab and the
Yeah.
infrastructure we have in place,
Yeah.
including the FAA. Had our recent meetings with their regulatory team in DC. They're
Hmm.
very interested in using our marshals, or collecting data our marshals will generate on some of the innovative ways to use it as they write regulations around the use of drones for public
Interesting.
safety. So we're going to be, we might be helping write policy here, just because we're going to be more flexible than,
Yes.
a department as big as Gwinnett is. They just don't have the same opportunities that we will with us being smaller.
Well, for sure. And having Curiosity Lab here and the ability to partner with different companies to do cutting edge work in public safety is just enormous. I mean, so
Yep.
yeah, very exciting to be able to get down that and to be able to provide that sense of safety and security to a community, and to be able to see how far we could go with that cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
Um, so the other thing that so there's always a lot of things going on here. One of the largest, I guess, the largest employer, Siemens, has finally come into partnership with the city of Peachtree Corners. We were talking about that a bit before. So tell us a little bit about what that means to have, at least at this point, the largest employer. Intuitive Robotics will be once they've completed, but Siemens being a partner, what does that mean? What does that do for the city?
Well, when you have an employer that's approaching 1,000 employees within your city, that is a major player in the technology space, whether
Hmm.
it's you know facility technology, electric and e-mobility technology. I mean, they're all over. They've got a lot of fingers in tech, and their North American headquarters for, well, if people don't know, they're a German-based company, a German headquartered company,
Hmm.
international, but their North American headquarters for their facility technology, their smart facility technology, is here in Peachtree Corners, and their worldwide headquarters for electric mobility is here in Peachtree Corners.
Right.
And it's always been a little bit, I guess you could say, embarrassing that our largest employer was not a partner with us at Curiosity Lab.
Right.
And it's a matter of navigating the labyrinth of international companies and where decisions are made, and things like that. But we finally ended up getting opportunities to see the value each could provide the other. And so now they have some of their new innovative EV charging stations, both here in the city for
Hmm.
use by customers, but also they're going to have a significant play in the EV multimodal expansion that we have, here at the Tech Park, that we're finally coming to a point where we can start construction. That was the $500,000 grant that former U.S. Representative Carolyn Bordeaux
Hmm.
got for us to build this multimodal center. And so it's going to have all things EV coming together at one location. And Siemens will have a significant play in the development of that site for them to test and enhance some of their technology. So we're excited. I mean, in the course of 2 months, it's our second German-based international
Yeah.
company that we have a partnership with after Audi. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, anyone that follows the city or Curiosity Lab on LinkedIn can see all these posts about companies coming here, even us going to countries like Israel and other countries that we've been to. So a lot of international businesses are just seeming to find the little city of Peachtree Corners, which isn't so little anymore, really, right?
Well, we're certainly punching above our weight class.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, we're a soft landing pad for international companies. And guess what? Some of those, when they land here, we
Hmm.
actually convince them to stay here. And there's
Yeah.
your economic development.
So it's paying off, and I think the city is also continuing to look at other avenues. I mean, obviously, this is smart technology. This is good high-end stuff, but we're also doing smaller things that is going to have an economic impact, but also good things for the community. Like just recently, the Atlanta Sci-Fi Film Festival decided with the city as a sponsor to be able to come out here, and instead of doing it in the city of Atlanta, the Atlanta Sci-Fi Film Festival is going to be hosted here in Peachtree Corners. So, nice, decent festival, and very different from what we normally might see here. So it's good to see that type of stuff happening. Um, and I'm sure there's other things along the way that we haven't even know about yet. So can't wait to see. But I do appreciate you coming through with all this information, Brian, and helping us
Always
out.
my pleasure, Rico. Thanks for helping keep our citizens informed.
Yes, appreciate you being here. Thanks, Brian, and everyone else that's listening. Appreciate you joining us. If you have any comments or you want to hear other subjects that we should be talking about, let us know. At some point, I'd love to be able to do this a bit more live. This is a simulcast live feed you may be seeing this on, or you may be seeing this on demand. But at some point, we may be doing a live feed, question and answers, or submitted questions ahead of time, or maybe live as we're doing this. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics on that and how we're going to do it. Twitter or X, who knows where it might be that we might do this. Maybe it's Instagram Live, maybe it's Facebook Live. But we'll take comments, and Brian's more than willing to answer those, or if he can't, let us know if he can't. So we're looking forward to doing some of that. So thanks again for being with us, and catch us in the magazine that's going to be coming out shortly. Peachtree Corners magazine will hit in about a week, actually next Tuesday. It's hitting the post office, so you'll see the latest issue coming out.